This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. Welcome back to another edition of Pop Goes Degrassi. I'm your host, James Gruenberg, and tonight we are covering Degrassi Next Generation episodes 7 and 8, titled Shout, Part 1 and Part 2. It's a heavy subject here tonight, and we've seen a lot from meeting strangers on the internet to child abuse, but this one is really going to change one character's life forever, and it's going to change like a lot of people's lives forever on how they perceive it and how they comfort this one character as well. So I would recommend that, like, a little viewer discretion advice. If you are listening to this, it's a heavy subject about rape. So yes, we will get into that all in these two episodes here. But let me bring in my co-host here tonight. It is Mr. John Kesselika. John, how are you doing tonight?
Grooney, thanks so much. It's great to be here once again with you, taking a trip down the Degrassi memory lane, as it would be. Enjoying the summer. And this summertime is really when I started to fall in love with this show. Summertime between this was when I was in college. So this is kind of bringing back memories of when we was first exploring these episodes on the N, and they were airing for the first time. And Shout was one that really got kind of special treatment. I don't know if you recall from like those original broadcasts of like, okay, this is going to be a big episode. Get your friends together and be ready to watch this, because it'll change a lot for some of the people from this show, the characters you've come to really enjoy.
Yes, and we always say that the episodes, like, always, like, remember watching these episodes, these two in particular, because of the subject that is going to happen here tonight. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of them are memorable, but like we always say, some are more memorable than others are.
Right. And in fact, since we are, living in the U.S., I believe we got these presented to us kind of out of order and had seen some of the later and more lighthearted season 2 episodes before Nickelodeon or whoever the broadcast partner here in the U.S. decided, okay, it's all right to be able to put this out.
Yeah, I assume so. I mean, now we don't know what how the streaming purposes do the orders here as well. So yeah, it really all depends on which way you're looking at it from. But yeah, like I said, this is Shout Part 1. There's a soccer game going on as Paige watches a boy from the other team run after Spinner for the ball. Spinner scores the winning goal, and Degrassi wins. Spinner says, "Good game," and the boy looks over at Paige. So Paige is really already smitten with this boy playing soccer here, John.
Yeah, I think that I loved how this episode kind of jumped right in, and we have our characters, things we've seen them kind of dabbling with or even kind of like on the outskirts with in the previous episodes are fully established. Paige and Hazel were seen as wanting to start the Spirit Squad or, not really having that many members involved. And now it's a full-fledged, cheerleading force that's on the sideline, in this soccer game. Spinner, we've seen kind of in and out, not so serious in sports, kind of goofballish. And now he's really, committed and even leading on the soccer pitch here against the rival school. So again, you and I were talking off air a bit before this. It feels like the show has grown up a little bit from the episodes we've seen, and like, maybe it's just that the writers and whoever feel comfortable and the actors feel comfortable enough in their roles that, you know what, we're just going. And these characters are in those positions. We don't need to introduce them anymore. We can just see them, fully successful here. And it's cool to see Paige and the Spirit Squad here, and Spinner and the athletes there. And it really is this full experience community that we don't have to introduce to anymore.
Yeah. And I totally forgot that it's a new year because I was like, well, wait, weren't they just playing basketball? And that was last year. Now it's a new year. We're in the fall of soccer, and we don't see Spinner on the basketball team. So he's doing well here on the soccer team now.
It's another thing that makes me think that kind of triggered me as to, are these out of order in that they're talking about the beginning of the year, yet they've already come back to school and had that introduction and awkwardness of school picture day and everything. Should this have been further up? I'm not sure. We would have to kind of look into that offline.
Yeah, because again, we start off with like the first week of school, and that's like with Craig. So now we're here. It's like, what is it, October? Like, has it only been a month since all this stuff has happened?
Maybe.
Yep. Hazel tells Paige it will never happen as Paige looks on. Spinner asks Paige if she wants to go to a movie tomorrow night. Paige accepts the date, and Hazel says Spinner is in love with Paige, but Paige doesn't have the same feelings. Spinner brags in the locker room that he's the MVP on the field and off the field as well as
with the ladies, as he says. Yeah, MVP on the field and with the ladies, right?
Yep. Even Jimmy gives Spinner props and says Spinner should rent a movie instead. That way, him and Paige can do more inside the house instead of at a movie theater. And Spinner actually is like, oh, you're right. Maybe we should do this.
Whoa. Jimmy acting like they've been together for 7 months, and are ready to make that next.
Yeah. Bring back Dr. Sally. Where's Dr. Sally and the banana?
Yeah.
And then the locker room celebrates Spinner by spraying water at him from the water bottles and stuff. So just all in good fun here too, as Spinner enjoys being the winner here.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I found a bit confusing was I kind of thought Paige and Spinner were somewhat established as a couple, but I guess we never really did. She's kind of been just teasing, leading him on, and maybe they've messed around or something, but they've never really been fully dating, as that's why he's still so smitten here and excited. But she's, obviously having eyes elsewhere at the same time, right?
Yeah, because again, in season 1, you only have that one episode where Paige basically just not really steals, but gets Spinner away from Terry. And then we just go through the whole Ashley and Jimmy saga, and we never really go back to this deal. They just flirt honey bun and all this stuff, but really we don't see Paige and Spinner go on a date until now. So you are right about that.
Yep.
Paige
but anyway, so Spinner's in high spirits here, and Paige is turning the flirting energy up as they walk by the bus, right?
Yep, Paige catches up to the other team's bus. Paige says hi to the boy who introduced himself as Dean. Dean invites Paige and Hazel to a party tomorrow night. So, again, Paige is like, oh, yeah, we'll go to the party, and not forgetting that, I made a date with Spinner, but she's really just smitten with Dean here.
Yeah, and, I thought maybe I misremembered this, I thought maybe Hazel would be a little more stressed about, hey, you made plans with Spinner, but no, she's all gung-ho about this too. She's like, I can't believe we're going to go. We're going to have so much fun. This is it. So, right, Hazel is on board as well.
Yep. So now we have our B plot, as we'll get into it. But this is such a weird B plot, and it gets even weirder as well as we get to when we get to like the next episode too. Toby opens up his locker and finds it a mess with all of JT's things. Toby tells JT to clean up his mess because if you remember, JT volunteered him and Toby to share a locker, and Toby is not finding this fun at all as JT is leaving the locker a mess. So very weird B plot here, John.
Hey, for those who haven't been paying attention, now this comes together as part of the consequences of needing to merge the high school and the junior high school at the beginning of the season, so we could have an excuse to have everybody still in the same school. And one of the compromises they made was you were going to have to share lockers, or some people would have to volunteer to. And dutiful Toby, obviously was one of the few to say, yeah, I can do that because, I don't have that much stuff to bring with me anyway, or whatever. Hey, kudos to them for continuity and keeping with this, but dragging it up, only really when convenient of needing a side plot to fill out the episode. They're like, maybe something happened with JT and Toby sharing the locker. Let's go with that.
I really want to know how many other kids have to share lockers, and are they the only ones?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like any of the other core characters we talk about have this problem. So, what did they say? What did they condense? Maybe 10 lockers total in among the rest of the students.
Yeah, it's not like Marco and Craig are sharing a locker, and it's not like Terry and Paige and Hazel are sharing a locker. Ellie and Ashley aren't, so they really just need a B plot, and they were like, oh, JT and Toby will just share a locker.
There you go.
Paige and
hilarious
experience. Yeah. Paige and Hazel are walking, and Hazel asks if Paige canceled her date with Spinner, and she texts him and says her grandma is in the hospital. Then Jimmy and Spinner are in what I like to call a blockbuster, but you really can't tell because they couldn't use I don't think they could use the name Blockbuster in the episode, but you definitely see like the Blockbuster colors and stuff. Bottom line is they're in a video store, and it definitely does look like a blockbuster background here, John.
Or the Canadian equivalent. They've given us branded Canadian items like pizza already, so maybe there is a Canadian Blockbuster. I'm not sure. But yeah, it definitely has that vibe, and I'm sure you're a little younger, Grooney, but I don't know if you had those, Friday nights that you would spend like the first like hour or so would be like just like cruising around the video store with the friends and picking out what you guys had for the weekend, if it was between games and movies, and then being able to cruise home for that. But that seems what Jimmy and Spinner are in the middle of here.
Oh yeah. I did it all the time too. Like VHSs were like $3 to $4 a rental. Mm-hmm. and the late fees and all. So I know all about video stores. I wonder if this one, you said it was pizza. I wonder if this one was called Video.
Yeah, Video was a chain in New Jersey though, and we did have them growing up. Yeah.
All right, so the Canadian equivalent of Blockbuster is not Video. Okay.
Yeah.
I had Video Island actually was my
Video
local
Island.
Video. It was like the town video store. Yep.
Was there anything? Was it the only store in the plaza? Or is there anything like island related to it that we that would help it keep that name?
No, but they had two video stores like in the same, not in the same plaza, but like one was at a different plaza, and they got robbed all the time.
It's a rough neighborhood in Connecticut.
Yeah, New Fairfield, Connecticut, where we rob crappy video stores. Yep.
Well, they settle on romantic comedies here, or romantic films, I think it was, not necessarily comedies. And Spinner says, it doesn't really matter, like, if he's going to have to watch it. He wants to just, like, make sure he has options of what they can. and then he goes for the snacks. Straight thinking with his stomach, much like they were in their road trip or weekend episode. And Spinner's grabbing the Doritos and chips, ready to go. But the text comes through.
Yep, as the text message does come through, Spinner reads it, and it says that Paige wrote that her grandma's in the hospital. You know, I was for texting at that time frame. It must be 2002.
Yeah,
she typed that out with like no errors and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, hey, the T9 texting of having to hit a number 2-3 times to get to the right letter you needed. I got pretty skilled with that.
Yeah, it took a while to get skilled with it. Yeah, Paige and Hazel knock on the door, and Dean lets them into the party. Paige tries to get Dean's attention, but then like Paige is approached by a girl, and she says to take it easy because Dean is older than her. Paige says that this girl must be jealous, and Dean returns with a drink for Paige, so they're gonna kick back a few. And this girl just comes out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, she's in a conversation with Dean. Dean lets them in. Paige and Hazel are then kind of by themselves and clearly overdressed for this, more of a casual hangout, it looks like, at a setting where these people own the home or live there. It's kind of confusing since I guess Dean is still supposed to be in high school as they were competing against them. But, maybe he lives with college friends or, is friends with these, and this is a college apartment that they're hanging out at. I digress. Paige and Hazel try to make small talk and fit in with Dean and his friends who are talking about music, and that goes pretty poorly. So Dean goes straight to the, let's get you more comfortable. Let me get you a drink, which leads to the girl being there alone with her and saying, hey, maybe she can kind of suss out that Paige is definitely in over her head here. Paige and Hazel are young, and this is maybe their first time at some sort of party like this. So, I completely forgot about this element that somebody does kind of give them a warning. But, Paige and Hazel are headstrong here and are going to move forward.
Yeah, well, these Pages, Hazel's just like along for the ride. She just wants to see her friend succeed here in some way or form of fashion. But now we go back to this B plot here. JT is making a liquid food concoction and calls Toby a clean freak, and then basically it's like, oh, okay, you got me there. Dean is flirting with Paige, but then Hazel sees Jimmy and Spinner at the party outside, and Paige gets scared. Hazel tries to get Paige to leave, but Paige does not leave. She asks Dean if they can go somewhere quiet, and Dean leads her upstairs. Yeah. So again, Hazel's like, oh, look, Jimmy and Spinner are here, and we're busted. Let's just go. But again, Paige is not going to ruin her chance with Dean here, so they go into upstairs in a quiet room.
Yeah, so this is all kind of, situations are kind of conspiring against Paige here, unfortunately. But this ties into after Spinner had received the text message, Jimmy said, hey, I've got an idea of something we can do, and, you got to be down, but it'll be pretty exciting. And another thing I forgot about, I guess he had in mind that he had heard of this party and was something that they could go to, which is what brings them there. Paige is going upstairs with Dean, sort of out of that she's, feeling like they're hitting it off and getting close, but also is a way of survival. She's not wanting to get caught by her boyfriend or by Spinner at this point. So she goes up. So she almost inadvertently is getting herself in this situation. It's really, really scary to see.
Yeah, she doesn't want to get in trouble with Spinner because she lied, but now she's putting herself in a vulnerable situation here with Dean. So, yeah, Paige really kind of screwed herself here as well. I really do wonder how Jimmy got wind of this party when it's like, yeah, we just played them in soccer and all, but I know the guy, so we can come here, and we don't even know what grade Dean's in. So it's like Dean
That's
could
what.
be like
Yeah,
a
it feels weird that
junior.
they're at this house party. Maybe it's a house party and somebody's parents are away, and that's what they're doing. But it feels like because he goes up, and he's like, "Oh, this is my roommate or my teammates room. We can use that." But
Jimmy
yeah,
got all
maybe how did Jimmy get invited? Grooney, I'll say we'll see later on that Jimmy's pretty good at listening in and overhearing stuff. So maybe he just wandered by and heard these guys planning a party, and so decided he would join in.
Jimmy got all the Bardell info here, as the school is called.
Right?
Yeah. He said, "Yo, man, Bardell, they having a party. I got the 411 on it too." So
Exactly.
Jimmy knows all the where to go for all the parties here.
Man's a master eavesdropper. We'll see it later.
Yep. So Dean and Paige go up to a bedroom, and she tries to turn on the lights, but Dean says he likes the dark, and they start to kiss. Paige lays down on the bed and tells Dean to take it slow. But then it takes a turn. Dean pulls out a condom, and Paige says no, but Dean proceeds with Paige in the background saying stop. And then that's what like the first half of this episode ends. Not the part one or part two, not like going into part two, but part
Right.
but like it's just like this is where like it turns ugly here.
Yeah, I thought we might be heading into part two already, but no, they do flesh out with this episode. Hey, they really pull no punches here in the rape scene. It is as terrifying to be here, and Lauren Collins, the actress who plays Paige, plays it well. She does seem so excited, so genuinely like kind of pleased and romantic about like being here with Dean, and it turns so quickly for her. I think it's a really, really bang up job by her in the performance, and the just letting the camera linger outside and hearing her saying no and stop is powerful enough to really, really set the tone for what's happening here. They've really taken the Paige character and moved her in this episode and in the next episode, to the forefront, where she's been kind of just a meddler and background character before, and she's taking it and doing a great job.
Yeah, I'll get into my thoughts on it on part two, but yeah, they did a very good job here. Again, you hear like Paige saying no and stop, like she's like almost like crying too, and like she's forced to feel this and just all this like gross stuff that is happening too. So it's an eye opener, and it sucks that it happened to Paige. But again, like you said, the actress and the creators did a very good job at describing what the character is going through. I don't want to say victim, but like what the character is going through and all the emotions here.
Yep, absolutely.
Paige is on the bleachers thinking about the party. Hazel, Terry, and Paige are talking about the party and Dean when Jimmy overhears the conversation. So here we are now. Jimmy overhears another conversation. He heard about the party, but now
that's what I'm saying. This is how I think that's how he heard about he's just always lurking around, like trying to hear what's going on so he can make some plans or inform his friend. And Paige in a very vulnerable state, a very saddened, obviously, state here. Hazel and And Terry is like, hey, I didn't, talk to you yesterday. There's obviously been, there was an entire Sunday, a weekend that, kind of went by after this incident. So, they haven't seen her. And what I found interesting was that Paige was even like, oh, he hasn't called. They're really, she's not sharing with her friends immediately what happened, but at the same time is maybe like clinging to the idea that, hey, he took it too far, but he still cares about her, and she's, worried that he hadn't called. And, Hazel is even saying, oh no, he'll call soon. Like, don't worry about it. Meanwhile, Terry just wants to gossip and wants to hear about what went down.
Yep. Mr. Simpson is asking the ninth graders for their homework, and Paige did not do her assignment. Mr. Simpson gives her another day. Paige tells Hazel her and Dean had sex. And then Toby lays down the law for the locker, and JT must follow the rules. He puts like caution tape over the locker, and he's like, if all my clean rules are, this is over.
Yeah, he's doing that straight 50-50 split, given the borderline. Hey, my stuff's here, your stuff is on the other side of this line, right?
Yep. And then when Toby leaves, JT actually starts to cut the sleeves off of Toby's shirt. Why? I don't know.
Oh, what are you talking about? Why? It dangled over past the borderline that Toby had put. So JT was able to say, nope, can't be there. And he, got rid of it. Got rid of it the only way we know how, through scissors.
Yep. And then Spinner is talking about taking Paige to see Star Wars. My guess is this is Attack of the Clones that just came out in the year 2002. So, and Jimmy's like, maybe she might be interested in Star Wars. I don't think Paige was the Star Wars type. What about you, John?
No, I don't think so. And, of all the ones to go see, Attack of the Clones is, you might lose her for good there, if that's the case. Unless she likes, retro 50s diners in a galaxy far, far away, or, talks about sand. Maybe she'd find it interesting. Yeah, I remember when that came out, and all of the excitement was around like, oh, Yoda is doing backflips and fighting with a lightsaber. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I went and saw it in theaters and was like, wow, this is really, really not what I was hoping for.
No.
And so maybe not what Paige would be hoping for either. But Jimmy's more concerned for his buddy here, and says, hey, maybe she wouldn't be interested in the movies, but at the same time, I think you should cool it on the whole Paige front, right?
Yep. But then Jimmy tells Spinner he heard that Paige hooked up with a guy at the party. Jimmy says she was upstairs with Dean. Then Paige and Hazel are... Yeah. And then Paige and Hazel are talking about Dean, and Spinner hears them. Spinner asks Paige how her grandma is doing, but he also asks how Dean is doing. Paige says Spinner wasn't there, and Spinner actually grabs her. She says, don't touch me, and he says a really bad line, why everyone else does, and Paige slaps him. So really bad move on Spinner, not giving Paige any reason for explanation too. Like, Paige was kind of wrong for lying for lying to Spinner, but Spinner again with a really bad line here. Like a low. I mean,
he feel yeah. I don't want to justify him being an asshole, but he does feel hurt, and probably just is being really petty in this case. And saying, oh, what do you mean? Everybody else does. You let everybody else touch you, which is just easy, Spinner. And hits really close to home for Paige, who's like, no, I didn't let him, and he did anyway. So, but also just really showcasing how difficult this is for Paige, internalizing all this instead of being able to, share, because she still is feeling kind of guilty about the situation as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we get Toby goes back to the locker and he sees that his sleeves are ruined, and they get in by JT and they get into a shoving match. Mr. Raditch then breaks it up, and then Paige in the bathroom tells Hazel that she said no to Dean over and over. Hazel tells Paige that it's rape and they need to go see a doctor or a counselor, but Paige really doesn't say anything. She is just crying in the bathroom now.
Yeah, and she feels like, hey, I didn't set up for this. I was the one who drank. I was the one who dressed up. She's, really starting to question herself about this. Hazel, Hazel much more of an active role in these 2 episodes than I recall, and really, being supportive of Paige here and trying to encourage her to seek help, especially that idea of getting to the hospital to try to get looked at after a sexual assault like this.
Yeah, instead of being the snobby popular girl, they're actually giving Hazel real dialogue and lines to being the best friend here.
It would not last for this series. She would go back to the sidelines pretty quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, apparently. Yeah. Mr. Raditch then gives a lecture to Toby and JT about sharing a locker, and JT lets Toby cut his sleeves off of his shirt as well. Hazel then tries to get... What'd you say?
Yep. I said, yep, they're a great compromise. We finally wrap up this B plot as the only way we can, with Mr. Raditch, telling them, hey, you need to compromise, and them agreeing, and JT saying, go ahead, you can cut off one sleeve of my shirt. My parents will hate me for it, but, it's worth our friendship. All right. See you next time, guys. Let's get back to the main story, right?
Exactly. Hazel tries to get Paige to go to a doctor, and Paige actually blames herself, but Hazel says it's not her fault and they need to tell someone, but Paige says she can handle it on her own, and that's where we leave part 1 here.
Yeah, Paige definitely feeling very alone at this point.
Even though Hazel is right behind her and backing her up 100%, that they really need to go and talk to somebody here.
Yeah.
This
do you want to do everything for both parts, or do you want to see them as?
No, I'll see it as one whole episode too, because I already have who the LVP and MVP are basically. Let's talk about the B plot here for a little bit. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
I've heard I've heard Justin and Tim talk about far away B plots in 90210 episodes as well, where it's we're so focused on the main storylines. Oh, hey, we're gonna throw in a Brenda scene, and it's for what?
Yeah, it's almost like the writers feel or directors feel, hey, the audience is going to need to take a breather at some point. These are some pretty heavy points and things we're throwing on these main characters. Let's give it some space, and they try to just punctuate it with something that is as unimportant as possible. And so I think that's why we don't get. Look at it. We don't get Emma in this episode at all, because what would we have done with her? Right? What role would she have played in any of this? And it's actually, to me, a breath of fresh air that we're spending, so much time just with the older class, and the side plot is something we can just kind of ignore. But yeah, maybe one too many scenes of the JT Toby incident, and that could have resolved itself, a bit more easily, and then be over with, or maybe like try to connect it to the A plot in some way, like they're fighting over their locker in the background of one of these tough scenes, and so we have a reason to be talking about them, but to be bouncing back to them as if it matters does seem a bit jarring.
Yeah, and then when we get into part 2, it's another B plot, but it's not even with Toby. It's more of like Liberty here as we get into it,
Yeah. If we were if we were pausing at part 1, I think Toby would have had a really, really good push for LVP here. although it's hard.
I would have given it to JT. You don't cut a man's like sleeves off a nice shirt. I would have definitely given it to. Not really, because there's Dean for what he did, but it's
that's the thing. Any LVP votes other than the assaulter. He kind of set the bar. He sets the bar at a different level than the other characters can aspire.
A close second is either JT cutting the sleeves off, or at least Toby just complaining all the time. Really.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. So now we're gonna get into part 2 of Shout here. Paige is in the bathroom when Dean arrives in the bathroom. She says Dean raped her, but Dean is like, no, you asked for it, you wanted it, we were having a great time. And then Paige realized it was like, Paige wakes up and it was just a dream. So now Paige is really seeing the effects of what happens during this when she doesn't want to tell anybody, and she hasn't told anybody except for Hazel, but really telling Hazel is not enough here, as she still has images and dreams about Dean doing it again, or Dean is just inside of her head here, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The dream sequence starts out definitely that weird blue lighting here and kind of odd soundtrack to set it up. But yeah, it's only been a few days still, but obviously this is really haunting Paige, and if something isn't done, it could be there. I think, and we'll see, we can talk about it a little more, but what I find most compelling and most powerful about this episode is it's really the first problem episode we've had. We talk about Emma in the opening with in the first season with the online predator, the drinking that we saw, the child abuse from Craig, right? But this is really the first situation, the first problem that we're going to see has a lasting effect, not just over one episode, 2 episodes, but this lasts through entire seasons and is really changing the character of Paige. All of those other ones don't necessarily seem to change the character. Emma is the same Emma after that situation. Craig is pretty close to the same Craig, except that he lives with Joey. But Paige, the Paige we saw before these episodes, is definitely kind of gone. And there are hints of that character, but she has been really dragged into growing up through this and also dealing with some serious trauma. It shows really that to me is why this becomes such a more powerful example of a problem. It's not a just after school special that's done in 60 minutes. This is going to be part of the character's story for the rest of the way.
Yeah, but also let's go back to Craig for just a little bit, because we know what Craig is going to have as he develops his character. Did you think that you noticed the sign of bipolar disorder from when he was screaming at Joey that Sean's a liar and all that stuff, or no, you didn't really develop it, you didn't really catch on to it quickly?
Not really, no, not at that point. They kind of lean into it later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I just felt it was already caught on that oh, this dude's got more problems besides than his dad beating him up. But
I thought that was more about,
take
I
it
thought that,
first.
to me, that felt more of his kind of masking the abuse and trying to
Yeah.
have like really, a positive outlook and be, this kind of like idealist is a way to, kind of hide what was really going on.
Yep. So then Terry runs to Paige and they talk about a contest for female singers. Paige says PMS broke up, and that's because of the fight that Paige had with Ashley. And then Terry chooses Paige's side, but then like Terry still wants to do this singing contest. Terry tries to convince Paige to ask Ashley, but Paige wants Hazel to do it instead. And then Ashley is lurking in the background too. She's like, her name's like, somebody say singing. It's like when someone's like talking about wrestling. It's like somebody's talking about wrestling.
Yeah, you a fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe she picked it up from Jimmy, like from their, several months together. She's learned this skill of being able to listen in. But yeah, we're trying to reunite Paige, Michael Chuck, and the Sex Kittens, rebranded to PMS. I was hoping they wouldn't have to consult the Oracle this time, and it seems like no, they've moved on from that. But the desire to bring in Hazel as a singer, and Hazel immediately jumps up to belt out a couple bars of Amazing Grace to show that she'll fit right in. Definitely a little cringy and worrisome, and Paige not exactly on board, maybe wanting to. You can see that she's probably going to need to do something to make this band actually work again.
Yep. Poetry is in session in Miss Kwan's class with the ninth graders. Ashley reads a poem about sadness and when it happens to yourself. Now, this really spoke to me about Paige, because Paige did not deserve like what happened to her, but Paige has come off as like a little bit of a bully. Like she would sort of like laugh but kind of feel sorry for like when it happens to somebody, but when it happens to her, it's like, why is anybody feeling sorry for me, and like, why is anybody feeling sad for me? You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I'd love to look back at some of the episodes and see if there are incidents of Paige actually saying to like Manny or Emma or Terry when something doesn't go their way, to saying like, "Oh, poor thing, like you can't do this," like, or you can't, because it does, like you said, feel like the attitude she would have had in the past, which is, as the poem says, it changes when it happens to you, and now she's experiencing that.
Yep. The seventh graders are doing a slideshow on biographies in Mr. Simpson's class. Liberty does hers on JT, and it turns out that Toby gave Liberty JT's photo albums. My God, this is a weird, again, a weird one here.
Yeah, I'm wondering about Mr. Simpson's teaching approach, that he allowed her, Liberty. It was supposed to be about like your role models or people you admire, and he didn't see that there would be a problem in having one of your classmates essentially be able to roast one of your students, a classmate of hers. I feel like he should have probably stepped in to say, hey, pick a Canadian prime minister instead that you can write about,
Yeah,
or some hockey.
Bret Hart or Wayne Gretzky, yeah.
Yeah. Bret Hart and Wayne Gretzky are out there. Why don't you pick one of them instead, right?
Yeah, this is weird here, and Simpson's like actually giggling a little bit here as well.
Yeah.
Then the seventh graders are joking around about Liberty's project, but then JT imitates Liberty and everyone walks off. It's like, okay, it was so funny for him to get humiliated, but when he imitates her or impersonates her, it's like, oh, it's not funny anymore.
Well, JT's excuse me, JT's imitations are much more biting and much more like hurtful, as he's like, oh yeah, I have no friends. And actually, no, I do have friends. These two books are my friends. And I'm going to be like, I don't know anything about having fun or whatnot. So, whereas, you know, Liberty's was a bit more playful in that case. She even calls it an homage, you know, whereas JT is just frustrated and instead yelling at her about what he sees as her flaws. And, you know, we've got an Emma moment, an Emma appearance here. So good. Of course, we get to have her disapproving of something. And she does not approve of the way JT is treating Liberty and walks off with Manny and Toby and some random person with blonde hair who is hanging out with them as well.
Yeah, we never see that kid again. PMS is practicing, but Paige is complaining about Hazel's voice. She demands a new wardrobe, but Terry says no, and they get into it a little bit, and it's like, what's the matter, Paige? You ever hear the word no? And that sort of set Paige off a little bit, too. Like, that's a callback as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Terry just keeps saying, no, I want to wear this outfit. No, no. And she says, no, a word Paige doesn't understand. And for somebody who has just experienced an assault and was saying no and not having it listened to, that's got to be gutting. And she is really hurting at this point and walks out of the practice. You know, I don't know where there's a time where Hazel would be allowed to, or, you know, to kind of not betray the trust, but be able to open up and say, hey, Terry, like, cool it. There's something, like, there's a reason Paige might be pretty pissed off that you say that. But, you know, she doesn't try to. Paige, you know, Hazel definitely is doing a good job of keeping Paige's secret. And even when it seems like she could probably diffuse that situation by saying, hey, like, you need to consider what some people might have going on in their lives.
Yep. Hazel bombs at singing, so Paige walked out, obviously. She goes to Ashley's house to ask her back to the band. Paige says Ashley's poem spoke to her that they need a new song about feelings of sadness. Paige says that they have a chance, and Ashley agrees that they have a chance to win this competition. So, a weird way to get back the Paige and Ashley relationship here, John.
Yeah, you know, Paige is being the bigger person and going to Ashley to ask for that help, and, you know, trying to put things behind them. She says, you know, we're better with you. Like, she's really, you know, admiring of Ashley here. Of course, Ashley's just like, hey, I want it to be, you know, more collaborative and, you know, a team project here. We can work together on this, and, you know, we can really make a difference with the song we write, which is what they hope to do. They want it, as Paige says, it needs to be about something that matters. And that's something that's real, I think she says. And that's what the poor thing lyrics will bring them. So, yeah, you know, good to see that it's trying to bring them together. It's not so much, you know, they're not giving a, hey, let's let bygones be bygones, let's be best friends or anything, but it is in the efforts of collaboration that they will, and making a message, making a positive impact with this song, that they can come together.
Yeah, I guess they didn't need that callback again to, like, Paige saying, I forgive you for calling me a hag and whatnot. They really let that one go.
They got to work that into the lyrics eventually.
Yep, Ashley shows the girls the lyrics, and the song is about rape. Paige doesn't want to use those lyrics for obvious reasons. Then JT is making fun of Liberty, calling her boring and wouldn't know how to have fun in the first place. Liberty then draws a circle on JT's locker with a permanent marker. And
Yeah,
then
I
she
didn't really know
leaves.
what she was going for drawing. It looks almost like an anarchy symbol, like the A in the circle or whatnot. But I don't know what the case was. But that was her being impetuous, her being like not the predictable person. That was her idea, right?
Mm-hmm. So then Ashley Paige reads Ashley's lyrics. Ashley tells Paige, like, let's use these lyrics, but Paige says no because Ashley does not know what it feels like, which is true. Ashley doesn't know what it feels like. Paige does, sadly. Mr. Radich yells at JT while Liberty giggles. Toby then says JT's mom will make JT leave Degrassi if he got in trouble one more time. So we understand that JT has parents, but that's going to change as JT's story progresses, John.
Does it? Do we lose JT's parents? I knew, like,
Yeah, like it's not like we lose them, but then like he's like, oh, my grandma, I live with my grandma basically as like time goes
okay.
on here. So I don't know how many more mentions of JT's parents we get, but I think we get them like a couple of more times in season 2. But then it's like I think by season 3 or 4 they go with he lives with his grandma.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Like,
listen,
well,
I think in the discussion, battle over the lyrics here is what is one of the kind of like key factors here. We've brought Ashley back to the group. Paige thought it was important to bring her back, and they could use her poem as the basis and being able to say something real. And Ashley comes in and as in a very Ashley way, is like, well, I researched this on the internet to find out like what it's like for these victims of rape, and here's what I put in, and it had those lyrics, specific ones that Paige did not like, included like, you took my body and tore it in half, and she's like, how can you say that? How can you put that in here? And Ashley feels justified in having researched it, and she's trying to tell that story. Paige not so ready to have somebody else tell that story, or feels that it's not genuine because of that, not having lived it. So she's she wants to, she wants to be able to share this, but she cannot still. She, like, only Hazel is the one person she's confided in. And we'll see as we move forward that hopefully that can change for her.
Yep. Hazel has polyps from over practicing her voice, and she loses her voice. So Ashley gets the solo. Ashley uses her lyrics, and Paige argues. They argue outside, and Paige breaks down. Ashley figures out that Paige was raped. So it's like, Paige is like saying, you don't know what it's like in this and that. And then Ashley finally figures out, oh my God, you know what it's like, Paige. And she's like, what happened? And Paige confides in Ashley that Dean raped her at a party, and that Hazel is the only one that knew. Not even Terry knows. So only Ashley and Hazel know. And I was like, I wonder if she told Terry about it, or like, or like Terry figured it out as well, John.
I think Terry will eventually, they must, after she goes to the guidance counselor, if anything, she probably opens up to Terry and lets her know. And it might be like, apologizing. Hey, I'm sorry I snapped at you before. Like, but here's like kind of what's been going on. And, Terry might have some inklings as to what's going on if she's been paying attention. But then again, maybe not.
And Ashley,
they are only grade 9. They are only grade 9 students, and not exactly the brightest bulbs. Right?
No, Ashley is like comforting Paige as well, and like they're hugging it out, and like Paige is crying and all this stuff. So Ashley really being lenient towards Paige here and being very caring.
Yeah, strong Ashley moments here. Ashley is somebody who was basically abandoned by this group, earlier in the season and has been kind of struggling on her own. But being willing to offer that support and listen to Paige here is good hearted of her, and hopefully it's working out and bringing them back together and making Ashley. We can see Ashley less of a kind of glooming, brooding character moving forward, and more engaged with this core group again.
Yeah, and the goth look, like that's her signature look for these years to come, really.
Yeah, but this is really kind of establishing that. We've seen it a couple episodes in a row now, but the spikier short hair and darker clothes.
Yep. Mr. Radich tells JT to clean the locker up from the graffiti, and luckily JT's mom wasn't at home, so Radich couldn't tell her what happened. Then Liberty confesses to Mr. Radich it was her, and JT is off the hook. The girls get ready to sing. Paige then sees Dean in the crowd. She tells Ashley. Paige starts to sing Ashley's lyrics. Dean leaves as the girls rock on. Liberty gets go ahead, John. Let's talk about this scene. So she sees Dean and she gets all like nervous too, but then she realizes let's use Ashley's lyrics because now she's going to get the message across, and it puts it into Dean's head that what I did was wrong, but I'm not sorry for it.
Right, and Paige is the one who takes the lead in performing here. This was meant to be. Remember, we discussed yesterday at the rehearsal. Ashley was the lead vocal on this, but and it was a bit faster paced. Now we see Paige is struck by Dean being there, and this becomes a more defiant song. And in her, she's about ready to walk off, but Garner gathers that strength, looks at Ashley, and starts to perform the song. It's much slower. It's much more like angrily sung, almost like directly at Dean. To connect here. So much so that he kind of runs from this setting. What is this setting? The performance and the competition, was this? It was not. Was it part of the school? Because why was Dean there? Was this just like at a mall, at a local competition in Toronto? I wasn't really sure.
I thought it was at a bar.
Yeah, like a bar or something.
Yeah.
I will say, like, looking at the performance, good job by Lauren Collins again, the actress. Really hammering home the kind of like delivers with a bit of a sneer and defiance when she's performing. I think Terry thinks she's performing some other song altogether, and she's just kind of like bopping around and smiling like while singing along. And it's like, I don't know where she thinks she is. She's like, I'm not your poor thing, and like smile with a big smile on her face. And they're like, yeah, maybe Terry, maybe read the lyrics a little closer.
Maybe that's why they didn't win, because Terry couldn't keep up. So now we get Liberty and JT again. Liberty gets detention and litter duty, and she apologizes, and like JT sort of apologizes back and calls her cool, and like gives Liberty like a smile at the end. Again, I think they could have done away with this scene. We could have let it go with I did it. It was me. It wasn't JT, and that's it. What do you think, John?
Yeah, but we could have left it at that. But this gives you kind of the hope that, all right, the ice is melting between them here, and there is, he's kind of seeing the like nice parts of Liberty and feeling that oh, this is somebody he can actually respect and kind of like, and it becomes instead more of that like that flirting, flirting with messing with each other, and so maybe there's hope for these two kids in the future, right? So again, like these guys, these guys. By these guys, I mean JT, Liberty, Toby, kind of really all of them in the thankless slot of, you guys are going to be the B plot to one of the major episodes that everybody talks about. There's nothing really that you can do that's going to be noticeable, or we don't want you to stand out. Just like go out there and fill some time. It's like we can go back to wrestling. It's that filler match before the main event after you just had a big ladder match or knockdown brawl between people. You need to cool things down. That's what we have these guys with. This is the Jazz versus Jazz versus Trish Stratus at the WrestleMania 18.
Yeah. Lita, Jazz, and Trish. Yeah, I thought you were talking about like the Utah Jazz. I was like, what are you talking about? But also, what was I going to say? It seems that like while Emma and Manny do interact with JT, Toby, and Liberty, it just seems that like everyone has like their best bud here, except for like Sean, really, because it seems that like Craig's gonna flock to like Marco and Jimmy, but he'll also be friends with Sean. But it seems like the three, like Liberty, JT, and Toby, are like a group, and Emma and Manny are by themselves, like together,
Right. And then Ellie and Ashley, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of this, the girls are talking about the song, and then Ellie makes her one appearance, saying that they should have won. But like, even Ashley was like, yeah, but we got a lot of work to do, and Hollywood can wait. And then Paige goes into the guidance counselor's office as we leave the episode with her shutting the door, John.
Yeah, she's ready to talk, and she's going to, start this process of being able to, maybe, who knows, like even seek, legal retribution here in some way. But the first way she can do it is by talking with a guidance counselor. So, good for Paige. And the freeze frame we get is kind of that, is it just a close on Paige as she is, walking in. It's not, a downer of an ending. It's hopeful. And, once again, I can just say good job for Paige, for Lauren Collins, actress. We can see why maybe she got tabbed to be in an Antonio Banderas movie. After this, they saw something in her.
Yeah. So the MVP is obviously Paige and Lauren Collins, because
100%.
Paige was great in this episode.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be hard to say anybody that a viewer could see that she had this in her. She was very one note as a character up until now, and there's a lot of depth to her performance here. I really would encourage you to watch that scene leading up to the assault with Dean, because she does seem just so in love and excited, and it's a genuine kind of like fawning over this guy. You can feel why she would be trusting in this way, and to have that torn away so quickly is heartbreaking. She does a a great job then in coping and in showing the struggles in trying to deal with this. There's not enough to be said. It was a standout performance, one that we didn't really see coming, and it's clear that the staff, the production crew, really trusted her to be able to do with this, and I'm glad they did. It really gives us, between her, Sean, and Craig, we've had three really strong emotional centers that it looks like we can kind of balance between with the other other editors kind of trying to find themselves, or even like providing just some comic relief or more lighthearted stuff.
Yeah, and obviously the LVP is Dean. I mean, there's nobody else. Like, I mean, like when you're doing like that, I mean, you're a douche, like you're an asshole, and so the LVP obviously goes to Dean. But again, it was like Toby's a very distant second, because not like Toby did anything wrong, but again, him just complaining about JT's messiness and then JT cutting off the sleeves. So I think the B line, like if it wasn't for Dean, you know, the whole B plot would be the LVP, because it's so dumb.
Agreed. Yeah, the B plot from that first episode, you know, really dragging things down. But again, you know, maybe it's serving a purpose as that buffer between all the really heavier scenes that fill out that episode.
Yep. Well, that's going to do it from us here tonight covering the episodes. But John, do you have anything that you want to direct the listeners to?
Hey, you know, on this podcast network, we have a lot of different great reviews going on, especially investigating some of the 1995 pop culture events that have gone on. We've had some cool movie watches. I heard JT and them do one of Mallrats, you know, another New Jersey film that I remember fondly from those days and watching. And, you know, we'll have some other stuff coming up. Tomorrow I'm actually recording with those guys on the 90210 podcast, the 90210 No-So podcast. So keep listening to that. It means an episode with me will be coming up probably in the next month or so when that's ready to air. We're deep into season 3, and that's a pretty meaningful season as we're into senior year with the kids, and a lot is going on. We've just seen Dylan's dad blow up and are moving forward from there. So check out 90210 No-So. Keep an eye on the 95 edition of what we're reviewing, and keep tuning in to Degrassi.
Yep. As for me, you can mostly find me on the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed. I have 2 podcasts over there. One is called Extreme Resurrection, where me and Steve Riddle cover ECW on Sci-Fi from 2006 2010. We are in March of 2008. We just finished wrapping up the Chavo Guerrero versus CM Punk feud, as Chavo Guerrero beat CM Punk again to retain his ECW title. And Tommy Dreamer and Colin Delaney are trying to beat Miz and Morrison for their WWE SmackDown tag team titles as well. So we have those 2 feuds going on. And then CM Punk tries to qualify for the Money in the Bank versus Big Daddy V. So they're going in a different direction with CM Punk. And then we get the announcement that there will be a battle royal between ECW and SmackDown superstars, also Raw superstars, for a number 1 contender spot at WrestleMania 24 for Chavo Guerrero's ECW title. So you can really see where they're going with CM Punk here as they move along with this Chavo Guerrero feud and they wrap it up. And then I have Nation Invasion. I have Jeremy Nichols, who is going to help me finish off the dates leading up to Survivor Series. We just covered Raw from October 22nd and SmackDown October 25th, 2001, where Vince McMahon lays down the challenge for the Alliance in a winner-takes-all match at Survivor Series. The Alliance loses 4 titles back to the WWF on Raw, and Shane McMahon gets a little revenge on his dad and mom on SmackDown. That and much more. So we're coming up to the end of points of the Invasion as well. That will drop. That'll drop as this one drops as well too. So you can catch all of that on the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed. Well, that's going to do it from us here tonight. He's John Keselika, and I am James Gruenberg, and we will see you next time.